and welcome to Global Journalist. I'm Byron Scott, your host for this week's discussion of world news events by professionals whose job it is to report the facts and analyze the consequences. Today is the first day of a film festival known to documentary movie makers around the world. For the next 4 days, the streets of Columbia, Missouri will be crowded with attendees to the 9th annual True False Film Fest. Documentary films, as we know, are more than one category from last week's Academy Awards. The works being shown this week represent a difficult form of long-term, in-depth journalism, requiring an underappreciated level of reporting and not infrequently risk. With me here in the studio is the founder and co-director of the International Festival for Fans and Filmmakers alike, David Wilson. David, welcome to Global Journalist.
It's great to be here.
And also with us is Barret Renaud, who with Florent Détollet, whose name I just mispronounced, our co-directors at Bendability, a look at the lives of a remarkable group of street musicians in Kinshasa. And on the phone, just about to leave for the airport, is Jarreth Merz, a Los Angeles-based producer and director of a documentary, the 2008 presidential campaign in Ghana called An African Election. Barret and Jarreth, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Good morning. Thank you.
I'd like to start out, David, with perhaps just a quick summary of what the Film Fest is and what you intend to do. Your intention was in putting this together almost a decade ago.
Yeah, it's been 8 years. We started the fest at a moment when, if we sort of think back to 2003, all of a sudden there were a lot of films getting sort of theatrical attention, nonfiction films that are coming out, and people were going to see them as movies. They were seeing films like Wing Migration or Capturing the Freedmans or Spellbound. And there was something about those kinds of movies that we thought maybe deserved not only for people to see in theaters, but maybe a platform to kind of champion them, to sort of push them out to the world and say, these are different. These are not the documentaries you remember from history class or science class, or that you see on the History Channel on television. These are stories with characters and drama and, really wonderful cinematography and editing and sound, all these things coming together. And so that was what really prompted us, that idea that we could do something for those kinds of films, and then we could do something for our local community. True False is a very community-based festival, and we really see ourselves as bringing together that community of global filmmakers and the community of Columbia, Missouri.
And you do it very, very well. It's one of the great events for all of our students as well as the community, and the hotels are filled with people coming in to see these movies. Barret, Renaud, tell us about Bendability, and which will be shown several times during this.
It's a band of people. They are disabled. They live in the streets of Kinshasa, and we came across them quite by chance in 2004, and we immediately fell in love with their music, and we decided to produce an album. And it took just 5 years, and today they are touring like in Europe, Japan, and they become like a famous band in the world music scene. So it's just like the movie that we did with them is like the story of a miracle, and it's been shot over the course of like 5 years in the streets of Kinshasa, because they were living in the streets with the street kids and all this underworld of Kinshasa. And so it has been a tremendous experience for us just to be lucky enough to meet those guys and to live a dream with them.
And many of the members of the band had been victims of polio. Is that correct? And they're in their own wheelchairs.
Yeah, like the customized Easy Rider styles of bicycle, which is pretty graphic when you say that. But most of all, it's their music that how do you say, seduced us a lot.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's like a mix of funk, rumba, soul, Congolese something, and they're like the wise guys of the streets, you know. They Yeah, like the wise guys, like the kings of the streets, and so when we met them, that we realized that their lyrics was like a piece of advice they were giving to the population, like stay straight, don't do this, don't do that, and they had a social role to play in the streets, and so all in all, we made a movie about them, but we didn't know what was going to happen in the very beginning. We would have never imagined that it would go like so far.
I'm looking forward to seeing that film, but in reading up on them, I've seen that one of their popular songs urges people to get out and vote, which is actually the subject of Jarreth Merz's film, An African Election, about a presidential campaign also in 2008. Jarreth, could you tell us a little bit about An African Election?
I'd love to, Byron. The film takes us behind the scenes of the 2008 presidential elections in Ghana, West Africa, and gives us a close look behind the scenes on how an election is run in Ghana, from the time, the rallies take place, through the voting process, the casting the ballots, the count of votes, and then basically announcing the winner. And I think there's a political fire raging through the African continent right now. And an African election will give you a never-before-seen view of how people vote, an in-depth view of how people vote in Ghana, which has always been a beacon of hope for democracy on the African continent.
Now, I know that you're Swiss, although you're currently living in L.A., but you also lived in Ghana for a while, did you not?
Yes, that's correct. I did spend my childhood from 3 to 10 in Ghana.
So you're not just a drop-in parachute journalist, as we call it, in this case.
No, I'm not. I actually have roots in Ghana. My grandmother is part of the Ashanti tribe in Ghana.
And I'd like to maybe turn this question to all of you. I was reminded watching the Academy Awards the other night that, first of all, the documentaries are only one category, which is really too bad. Both short and feature length, I guess. But secondly, that there's much less verite in cinema verite today, in the sense that what we would refer to as documentaries seems to be being overwhelmed by special effects, by things that are done on computers rather than about people. How do you maintain that that challenge? Documentaries. People should be going to the movies to see documentary features.
Yeah, but I think it's only, at least in the U.S., recently that was an idea. You have a history of documentary here, but not so much one of theatrical documentaries, not so much one of those sort of documentaries standing in for those sort of movie experiences. And in fact, I think that one of the shifts we've seen in terms of cinemas is that people have moved. There are less foreign films in the U.S. There are less European, South American films shown in the U.S. and that documentaries have taken some of that sort of screen space on the cinema. So it's an interesting question, but we sort of, I guess, believe we're living in a golden age of nonfiction, that people are making really amazing work, like these two films we're talking about today. So we're optimists that way. I don't know.
Yeah. What would you add to that?
Not much. Maybe that the gear you're using to make the movies are lighter than they used to be, so it makes it very possible to be more flexible.
Technically, right.
Yeah, in the way you do things. And I haven't seen the movie The African Election, but it's also a matter of it makes it possible for you to emerge. To get just that people come to forget you to a certain point, to forget the camera. And so, which is very interesting, is like you don't put theories, especially on Africa, you don't judge things and point them like in a more like Michael Moore way, and you let more people talk and be themselves and explain their world through their eyes, not through yours to us. So that was also something important, especially when it comes to Africa, between brackets.
And I think both of these films are essentially immersion journalism, where people they aren't sitting in a studio type atmosphere as we are. They really are being themselves. Is that the case also in the African election, Jarreth?
Absolutely. I mean, you become a fly on the wall. You become an eavesdropper of something phenomenal. You've never been so close to a revolutionary. You go to his home. You've never been with the electoral commissioner behind closed doors where the decisions of a country and the fate is made. I mean, I think that's the magic of documentaries, that what you see is real. It's a trip down a lane you'll never go in reality. It's a ticket to a place that is just unbelievable. And I think that's what makes documentary filmmakers so great. The challenge has been to compete narratively, like to engage an audience, I think. A lot of documentaries have done that in the past. They've become more stylized. Like you were saying, the camera gear has changed, but people have become more ambitious visually. It's not only about the content anymore. There's been a move of how can we make this look cinematic? How can we visually take the audience on a journey?
Well, I would hope that documentaries in 3D are maybe further down the line, but I can personally wait for those, since I usually have to put the glasses on over my glasses.
There's a new one coming out this year, by the way. Werner Herzog, a pretty well-known filmmaker, made a documentary about a very famous cave in France, and he shot it in 3D. So there you go.
Well, I may have to. I may have to create a special fold-out glasses for that, for people like me. I was doing some research on the origins of documentary films, and I found way back in the 1920s there was one that I'm sure you all know that was considered the founding documentary film, Nanook of the North. I know that a criticism in the Nook of the North was that part of it was actually shot in a studio, so that cinema verite was not really in that case completely about these Aboriginal Indians in I believe in the Arctic.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
yeah.
right? I would like to ask you about that. I know, of course, there are post-production or kinds of things that have to be done with the movies, but what are the problems with actually getting inside these situations that we were talking about before the break, and how do you become this fly on the wall rather than somebody who is in a fully controlled studio situation?
I don't have any recipe for that. I guess maybe the time you spent doing the things makes you invisible, but you have to spend a lot of time. For us, especially because we were two white guys in Kinshasa, plus we had the cameras. But a thing we did is after 1 year and a half, we started to speak the same language, like Lingala, and makes things very easier. And I don't have any recipe for that. It's just really to have time and let the people talk, and just don't want to impose your visions on things, and try to stay discreet, but also very active and very reactive. But I don't have any recipe.